All right, good stuff. Okay, nice to have everyone here. This is a rare, I guess, Ask Me Anything that I'm hosting. I'm kind of learning a little bit from my friend Margo, who has these regularly with her service. But I wanted to take advantage of Margo and her knowledge and sort of share a bunch of updates on time trades and really engage in a two-way conversation with the community around what we're seeing in the markets, how we're using the tools, and get your ideas and really just kind of engage with you guys. So just a quick summary about me. My name's Blair. I've created time trades over the last 5 years or so. It's a data service and TradingView scripts and tooling. It's really not focused on creating market calls or market signals. Like you're not going to see me issue buy here and sell here sort of thing. But the tooling is really focused on making financial astrology convenient. Convenience is a big value proposition of what I offer. And also transparency. Because I'm focused on tooling, I'm not interested in protecting any proprietary ideas or techniques or anything. I believe that the real challenge in trading is mental. There's no magic indicator, and it's really important for us to sort of build confidence in, as traders, build confidence in a technique that we can execute reliably, and then after that, it becomes an exercise in self-discipline. So there's my website. You may be a subscriber, you may not. If you're not, welcome. If you are, welcome as well. It's great to have you here. And now I'll turn things over to Margo, and she can introduce herself.
Greetings, everybody. So I am Margo, as many of you probably know. I have been studying the markets since 2016, and I really started integrating astrology. I've also studied astrology for quite a few years and got very, very serious about it probably about 2019. And then it was 2020 when I actually synthesized the idea of putting these things together. And I feel like I started using Blair's software, I don't know, maybe 2.5 years ago, I think at this point now. And it really just accelerated what I was doing at a breakneck pace. And so I guess that's just kind of what I do. And so I have a little newsletter service and it's grown, actually. It's not really exactly just a newsletter service anymore, because I started the newsletter just wanting to share what I was studying and doing with other people and meet more people who were interested in it. And then from there, it kind of started growing, and I was honing in on forecasting and what people really wanted out of forecasting. And so while I'm not also running a call service, I am running a forecasting model, basically. So I'm forecasting, and what it's kind of turned into is broader based, like quarterly, biannual, annual outlooks based on the astrological events and the markets. And then within that, now we have a monthly newsletter. And within the monthly newsletter, we have weekly forecasts. And what the real focus is on providing turning points on whatever time frame a person is looking for, and high probability points for strong moves. The most recent trade that we took that I took, because I'm not a financial advisor. And so the way I frame it, it's an educational service, and I'm just sharing my highest probability trades. I don't share every trade I take. Like I said, it's not a call service. But my highest probability trades based on the main assets that I cover, I do share. I also share some of my favorite charts that I'm watching in a channel called Charts on Watch. But that's just basically what we do in my Discord. And really, I just love helping people learn. So I'm here today to share all that with everybody and talk to Blair, because Blair's one of my closest friends, and we totally can geek out on all this together. And hopefully you guys can join us and learn some stuff along the way.
Yeah. So I want to make sure this is interactive. So even though everyone is muted right now, feel free to unmute yourself. We welcome interruptions. We don't want to sit here and engage in a monologue for an hour. That's boring. So please, if you've got questions, just jump in whenever, okay? So what I want to start things off with here is just kind of a review of the process, because there's been two major updates to time trades over the last 2 or 3 months, okay? The first is this page here. So let me just drag that over, okay? So this is the timetrades.com website, and this is the chart where you see the AI-generated probabilities. This is the tab where you see what influences those probabilities the most. But what I really want to talk about is this third tab here, which is new, and this is called Natal Aspects. And what this does is this, based on the natal date of any stock or coin, in this case, we're looking at Ethereum, okay? So Genesis block, July 30th, 2015, 1226. I've used Tokyo, but I mean, who knows the actual location for crypto? I chose Tokyo because I have about 8 different potential natal locations in the AI, and I was able to kind of test all 8 and found that Tokyo gave the best results. That's why. So I don't have any insider information there. But this was the state of the sky on that date, all right? Now we've got heliocentric aspects. So an aspect is an angle between planets, but there's also something more here, okay? You'll notice that, hey, Sirius isn't a planet, Regulus isn't a planet. These are called fixed stars, and this is new, okay? So we've got fixed stars here, and we're only tracking conjunctions with them, and then we also have conjunctions between all the planets in the solar system, which don't need any introduction. And then we've got geocentric aspects involving the moon and lunar points like the apogee, okay? So the lunar apogee is kind of an obscure little point. You astrologers like Margo like to invent scary words for this. This one is called Black Moon Lilith. It's got all sorts of, I don't know, sounds like Halloween to me. Anyways, mean lunar apogee rotates in an 8.85 year cycle, which is interesting. There's also, we always think of the moon as being really fast, like 1 month, but there's longer cycles involving the moon, 8.85 years for lunar apogee. And then we've got some intraday natal aspects. These are usually based on the rotation of the Earth, okay? And then finally, we've got some other geocentric aspects down here that I'm going to gloss over, but that information is still here in case you're interested in knowing what those are. And then finally is the actual positions of everything, heliocentrically and geocentrically, including the fixed stars, and what signs they're in. And one of the things that I'm trying to do, in the interest of education, is I know that astrology has all sorts of like funky symbols and that. So I like to present both the funky symbol and the word so that we can, all sort of learn at our own pace and not feel like an idiot because you don't know what the funky symbol is for Jupiter. Okay, so this is 1/2 of the new process. All right, so what do we do with this information? Okay, well, there's a couple things that we can do. The first thing that I'm going to talk about here is planetary lines. Now, we've had planetary lines, and I'm using ETH as the example here. We've had planetary lines for a while in time trades, okay? But, like many time trade scripts, there are lots and lots of options that, oh my goodness, if you were to like trial and error all of these different options to see which one works, you would lose your mind. So this is where the natal aspects come in, because the natal aspects identifies the planets that are important at the birth of the coin. So what I'm looking for here when I choose planets for a stock, I'm looking for conjunctions. Those are important. I'm looking for oppositions. Those are important. And I'm also looking for slower, bigger planets. So Mercury, you will find, if you look at this enough, you will find Mercury pops up a lot. Mercury is in like every aspect. This is kind of average. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 aspects involving Mercury. That's okay. You can use that if you wish. What I find is Mercury is a little bit too fast for choosing planetary lines. So what catches my eye here is this one. We've got Mars opposite Pluto, and we've got Mars square Uranus, okay? And so these two catch my eye. And so what I've done in this planetary line here is I have, hey, Royal, welcome. Hey, Royal, feel free to unmute if you've got a question, okay? Everyone's muted by default. And we've got, we're using Mars-Uranus synodic. Now, if you're not familiar with what a synodic angle is, instead of measuring Mars's position from 0 degrees, we're measuring Mars's position from wherever Uranus is. So it's actually measuring the gap between Mars and Uranus. And we do that because Mars is square Uranus in the natal chart. All right. So this is our cheat sheet to help us identify which aspects are important and what we should choose from over here. So we've done that. We've chosen Mars Uranus, but now there's another little trick that I've come to learn on the planetary line script is there's 2 different ways to scale these things. I can scale using mod 360, in which case, let me just expand that a bit. And when we use mod 360, this is what it looks like, okay? We get basically 1 cycle of Mars-Uranus every 2 years, because that's roughly what it takes for Mars and Uranus to complete a single cycle. So it's slow, right? I mean, the lines are still useful. You can see the lines are catching price at the highs and the lows. That's all good. But there's a way to take these slower planets and speed them up, okay? So you can see here, here's the start of 1 cycle, October 2022. Here's the start of the second one. And you can tell already there's something special about Mars-Uranus because it caught this low right here at the start of a cycle. So these are the things that you're kind of looking for when you're configuring these planetary lines. So what you can do to speed up slow planets is switch to Wheel of 24 scaling. And in Wheel of 24 scaling, instead of looking at chunks of 360 degrees, we're looking at chunks of 24 degrees, okay? Now we get vertical lines with every 24 degrees of Mars, okay? And now we've got some structure that it's really eye-popping how clear the structure is now on ETH. We can see these diamonds become very, very obvious about, okay, crossing the lower right of a diamond means, yeah, we're still going down. But if you cross the upper right of a diamond here, then yeah, that's positive for bulls. The other thing that jumps out is just how important every 24 degrees is in terms of creating a new trend or creating a new structure. All right, so that also jumps out as well. And then in the middle of each 24-degree diamond, we've got 12 degrees. This is where the lines cross. And these are also important points, right? So the structure becomes a lot more tradable and you get much more of an edge. One other thing I'll point out is these lines exist in horizontal bands, right? So every 24 degrees, we've got Mars-Uranus moving, and then it hits 24 degrees and then it comes down. Then it moves up and then it hits 24 and then it comes down. So every 24 degrees, if we were to draw like a horizontal price line at each of these spots, right, you would see this. And these are, it should start to become clear how important these bands are in terms of managing price. So now we've got just multiple ways to look at price here. So this is just, I guess, what I call the background, right? The planetary line background. So before I jump into the vibrations, let me just invite Margo and anyone else if you've got thoughts on what I've shared so far.
Hey, Blair. Yeah, so I love the way that you just explained the difference between the mod 360 and the, sorry, I'm misstating it.
Wheel of 24.
Wheel of 24. Yeah. I am happy to, I mean, I think that for me, the planetary lines are almost one of the first go-tos when you're looking at cycles in general. So before you had added the natal aspects to time trades, which is an incredible time saver, I would pull up the astrology chart and I would look for the cycles that were either at conjunctions, oppositions predominantly, or potentially squares or trines. But what I found was that the conjunctions were the most powerful. And I would throw them on the chart and look at them on whatever time frame using actually, I use predominantly the mod 360 because that's predominantly actually what I use it for.
Right. Okay. So that's half of what I wanted to share is just planetary lines and the use of the Wheel of 24. So the next thing I want to share is building out the sandbox. How do we go about building out the sandbox? So again, like I share these sandbox recipes, right? And I want to kind of walk through a bit of the process for how I create these. So let's bring up the vibration sandbox, okay? And we're gonna hide this guy. Actually, I'm gonna delete that guy. This is the actual, this is my current sort of best vibration. I'm gonna show you how I built that. Okay, so the process involves basically looking at what planets are aspecting here. Now, it's not quite as simple as just point and click on everything, although you can do that, and I'm sure that'll work, because there's some interesting things here about like the fixed stars, and that's kind of where I want to spend a little bit of time here. So let me just take a look here. All right. So there's a couple different ways to start. I like to start with conjunctions, okay? And let's see if there's any big planetary conjunctions here. It looks like the biggest conjunction here, we've got Mercury conjunct Jupiter, all right? So we'll start there, okay? Now, what I do for the numbers, the number is the harmonic. So Mercury's heliocentric orbit is 88 days. Let's just round that up to 90 for easy math. Third harmonic of that is 30. So that's the denominator, right, of the equation. So you take your 90 days, you divide by 3, you get one cycle roughly every 30 days, okay? And that's what it looks like. And it's, let me just hide some of this so that it's more visible. I'm going to hide the lines so everything's a bit more visible. All right. So even now, this is helpful, right? Like even just this very first thing that I've identified is helpful, because one of the ways that you can trade this, and the idea, the concept around this is that it's not supposed to identify like extreme highs and extreme lows automatically for you. You still have to trade. You still have to think, right? And the methodology I use in my head, and maybe you have a different one, and I'd like to hear that, is I just kind of take the range of the body of the candle on the day of the vibration. And then I draw a rectangle there, and it's basically a breakout trade. So if it starts to separate above this range, then that's the direction of the trade, right? And it works best when there is kind of like a doji or a small range bar, right? That works pretty good. This works pretty good here, right? So the other thing I've noticed about this technique is often we'll get a move that ends in the middle, okay? So like this, the move ended about a third of the way through, which is why it's important to take profits, okay? Sometimes these vibrations, they just don't go anywhere. They just go sideways like that. And there's basically no separation. Sometimes you get vibrations like this that are like complete home runs, right? So you never know what you're going to get. I'm sure there's, if we were to line up like a high quality planetary line like Margo just showed on NVIDIA, that would give us an edge in terms of anticipating, okay, where are we in the overall cycle? But this is the way that I use to trade these, right? Is think of these vibration days as just establishing a range bar, and then we trade directionally from there, and try not to anticipate, because sometimes they continue the prior move, and sometimes they consolidate sideways, and sometimes they reverse the prior move. But there's other ways that we can try to deduce what the direction it's going. So here we are. We've got our vibration. It's pretty basic. We've just got one here, which is Mercury Jupiter, and that is part of the Natal Aspects. Okay, so what do we do about these guys, these fixed stars? All right, so fixed stars are really, really important because they're pretty central to Vedic astrology, and this is why the Vedic method has 27 different nakshatras. Their nakshatra is like just a finer grained sign, right? So there's 27 of them, and they're all centered around a fixed star, okay? I don't have 27 fixed stars here. I only have like 9. You can see them down here, but they're some of the most important ones. So what do we do with this? We've got Mars conjunct Sirius. Okay. So Mars has a roughly 2-year cycle, okay? So what I like to do is I'll put in 24 as a harmonic to convert 2 years to a 1-month cycle, all right? Because that's kind of the time for, I kind of want to make sure I've got a 1-month cycle there. If you want to do this on a weekly chart, then choose a harmonic that resonates on a weekly basis. Now, the other little thing that we can do here for these helioharmonics is we can add an offset, all right? So when it comes to, we know that Mars and Sirius is conjunct at 104 degrees, okay? We know that the 24th harmonic is every 15 degrees, okay? So what this means is we want to set up this wave, right? Because what we're doing is we're defining a wave, and we want to set up this wave so that it peaks at 104 degrees, which is where Sirius is, okay? So how do we do that? We set an offset, okay? So this offset is 7.5 degrees prior to 104, right? Because if we set the offset to half of the harmonic length, then that's where the wave starts. Then halfway through, it's at its peak right at 104. So let's math this. 104.3 minus 7.5 is 96.8, okay? That is our offset for Mars. Okay. So we'll let that compute, okay? So there we go. Mars is also opposite Pluto, so we have to pick one. We could pick Sirius or we could pick Pluto. I picked Sirius, all right? And What else do we have here? We can do the same thing for Jupiter and Regulus. Now, Jupiter has roughly a 12-year orbit. So what harmonic do we want to use? Right? 12 times 12 is 144. 144 will reduce that 12-year orbit down to 1 cycle per month. Okay. So now we've got Jupiter 144 in here, and then we need to identify the offset. And I've done this ahead of time. The offset here is 330.05. Okay. So that will ensure the Jupiter wave peaks at its conjunction at Regulus. Okay, so that's sort of how we make use of the fixed stars here. And so we've got 2 of those, and we also have Mercury. Mercury is also conjunct Jupiter, therefore Mercury is also conjunct Regulus. So we can use the same offset here, 330.05. Actually, no, that is wrong because it's got a different harmonic. So if we're using the 3rd harmonic for Mercury, as we should, that's right. And it's conjunct Regulus, Mercury conjunct Regulus over here at 150. So we want it to start basically 60 degrees before 150, right? Because an entire cycle is 120 degrees, half of that is 60. So we want that to start at 90.05. Okay, so we start Mercury at 90.05, and that's it for this section. And then we can go on and we can set up some of our major synodic relationships. Obviously, Mercury conjunct Jupiter is a major. We'll include that one. And Mercury Neptune is also another major one. I always like to focus on the conjunctions and the oppositions first. Okay, so we'll add Mercury Neptune. And then to wrap it all up, we'll add some lunar harmonics. Okay. If we go and check our lunar harmonics, what I always like to do here is include the apogee, because this is a slower and more powerful harmonic. This is 8.85 years. Okay. So if I see apogee in this list, even if it's a weak aspect like sextile, I'm going to use that. So we've got apogee Saturn, and we can find that in the list here. Here's apogee Saturn 24. Okay. Although this harmonic may need tuning because 8.85 times 12 is 106. So we may want to increase that. We can use the important number 108 for that. That'll be roughly a month. Okay. And what else? We've got apogee Saturn, and then we can wrap up with Moon Mars, Moon apogee, and Moon Uranus. So let's just grab those and then we can see what it's like. All right, there we go. So I always find it amazing the way this thing just kind of snaps into, like, I won't say perfection, but very, very good, right? These, even if it's not getting the extreme highs and the extreme lows, like these are very tradable points, right? Very tradable points. This one is kind of like this is the extreme low, I think. Nailed that. This is the extreme low of this move down. And it's also a tradable point because it establishes a range that you can make money off in the next move. this one here establishes a range that, well, kind of hard to make money on that sideways move, but we've got a new tradable point that hit yesterday, or with this doji. So let me just pause here. I've been talking a lot. I hope I'm not putting anyone to sleep, but any comments or questions on what I've done so far?
I
I
mean,
just think that we,
no, go ahead, Robert.
I was just going to say, Mark, that I just think they're really tradable. Entry, tight stop loss, and then just trail it up. When you get stopped out, who cares? Keep an eye on run a GAN box for maybe the 50% point to just be a bit more wary at that point and onwards.
Sandbox is a brilliant idea, actually.
I'm sort of visually looking at it going, a third, 0.5, 0.6 are probably one of those three is going to be your turn points.
Yeah,
it's just and use those as a maybe stop loss at the beginning, move up at that third point with a trailing stop loss from there, because you just want to make sure you get out without giving too much back.
right. Yeah, the technique I use for that is I've got this little indicator called, now this isn't part of time trades, but you can probably find things like this pretty easily on TradingView. EMA multiples. Okay, so what this is it's showing multiples of the average true range, and it is comparing where the close is relative to the 21-day EMA and expressing that as multiples of the average true range. So right here, that means we are one ATR, one average true range above the 21 EMA, okay? And then notice I've got red lines over here, +3, -3. Now you won't get many extremes on the daily chart, but if you drop down to an hourly, so again, the technique is I like to import levels and vibrations from the daily chart down to the lower time frames. And then that's where we can get an edge, because we know that this level is important. A given level is important at on the daily. And if you're trading the hourly, you can probably get a reaction from it. So the vibration is recalculating here, and when it reappears, we can have some more context on what we're looking at. But you're absolutely right, Robert. Like when it comes to taking profits and making sure that you're paying yourself, that's really critical. This is not a good vibration. This one here, this is just like consolidation. This entire phase is consolidation. One of the thoughts I've had about the vibrations is I've wondered to myself if they alternate, like big moves and then consolidations and then big moves again, right? So this was a reasonable move here, right? Come down, and you can see, like, it's not the whole idea of trading these vibrations is not, do not assume that it's an end-to-end move, right? Once we get in this extreme oversold position, once we get below like -3 on this indicator, it's very likely gonna just have a rubber band reversal, and that's what happened, right? And look at this up here, we're up at +5. This is just screaming take profits if you're long. And if you're using the vibration technique, let's redraw, wait for this to redraw because this green line is not in the right place. So yeah, if we're using the vibration technique, and this is drawn on the daily but currently displayed on the hourly, you can kind of look for reversal trades. I find the vibration to be, a good sort of like starting point for a new cycle. And this is the time to look for reversal trades. And when you're up here in the mid range of the ATR, it's not great for reversals. You're kind of in no man's land. You want to buy down here and sell up here, sort of thing. Haven't even shown the square of 9 yet. I'm sure if we put a square of 9 on this, we'll get some other levels that'll help to crystallize everything. Any other questions while I set up a square of 9? Okay, so I'm just going to anchor the square 9 down here on April. And let's just turn off the timelines on the square of 9, because often I see, like if you're using the vibration's pretty good for time. We don't really necessarily need the timelines from the square of 9 as well. So the green lines here are coming from the vibration script. These are the inflection points. And the price lines are coming from the square of 9, okay? And, this is the kind of performance that we've grown to expect from the square of 9. I may want to widen this out a little bit. In terms of price per sell, always start with unity. So 110, 100, whatever that is. So yeah, this is pretty solid. And if we want more levels, we can always add the 180. And I'll start with 90 and 270. I find 120 and 240 to be good, but if I'm just going to have 3 different levels, I'm going to have the squares on there. And yeah, now we can see some pretty clear profit taking levels up here at this 90-degree square of 9. So this really helps with understanding kind of where we are in the broader context. So here on this bar, we lost this 90-degree level, right? But we didn't get all the way to the 180. One would expect that we're going to the 180, but we don't get there. And then it recovers that 90-degree level. That's a sign of strength. And then it rotates up another 180 degrees up to the next 90-degree level up here, right? One of the things I'm finding as I look at these squares of 9 is the big pivots, the major highs and major lows, they don't end on the 360s. These are the reds. 360s are the reds. They tend to end on the squares, the 90s and the 270s. It's almost as if there's just like this momentum, and the momentum carries a wick through and like down lower. And whoops, this really should be reset and anchored here. We'll put it on the close of the day, or the low of the day with the lowest close. There we go. That's the rule I like to use. So yeah, again, you can see up here, but the point I'm making is that it's the 90-degree levels in the square of 9 that tend to stop the moves, because it's like there's this momentum that carries it through the 360 up to the 90. I just find it really eerie how good these square of 9 price levels are. And when you get like a combination of a tap on a square of 9 along with, like a spike lower in this ATR, it's a little bit more pronounced on the intraday charts, but yeah, it's really clear. I had a trade like that this morning on Coinbase. Like the Coinbase levels are crazy good. It's just so. I took weekly calls on Coinbase yesterday, like around here, because I saw it regain the 360. Okay. The other thing I saw on Coinbase, and this is how I set up my charts. I've got one for intraday and I've got one for daily. And the other thing I saw here on the daily, which was really interesting, and this was kind of the core of why I took this trade, was on the planetary lines. The most important planetary line we had here was Earth Mars. Why? Because if we bring up Coinbase's natal aspects, we've got, wait for it, Earth square Mars, okay, within 2 degrees of it, okay? So I always like to, when I'm setting these, I find the most impactful planetary lines often combine one of the inners plus either Mars or something beyond, right? Those tend to have really high impact. And we can see as we scroll out how important this is. Like Coinbase's recovery from this earnings gap kind of started right on this halfway mark here of the Earth-Mars synodic cycle. And then it reached 24 degrees, starts a new cycle of 24 degrees. And now you can see how the wicks, these wicks down here crossing the planetary lines, these are getting bought up, right? So I saw this on Friday, and then I bought this on Monday, and I sold, well, not the high, but close enough to, you know, double my money on weekly calls. So this worked out really well. And I want to make sure that we're all kind of using these tools to their maximum. And you can see that Monday to today was 360 degrees on the square of 9, red to red, round trip, boom. Okay, and this one's anchored to June 13th. And price per sell is 0.1, unity. Okay, so these are like concrete examples of how to use these tools. And what's this green line here? This is square of 9 bar count. Bar count's a little weird because it varies depending on the time frame you're looking at. But on this 15-minute, like that's a textbook square out. I sold up here because there was this massive spike. We were talking about exit strategies, right? So we had this massive spike up to like 6 ATRs above the 21 EMA, right? On this opening candle. And then we tagged the 90-degree level. And that's when I punched the sell button. So I want to share these examples here of like very concrete executable strategies on how we can use these tools to consistently be profitable. All right, let me pause here. Margo, anyone else? Anything to add to this?
Well, I mean, I use things in a similar way, but different in my own style. I really lean very heavily into the fractal nature of the charts. So, for example, I have pivots calculated, and so like I wouldn't use the same vibration on like the hourly that I would use on the daily. I would find this either the vibration, or I really use the ruler a lot. Here, I can share my charts. Hold on.
Take me to your ruler.
Well, let's see. So Tesla, I have some really nice vibrations on that I could share, but gold, and I just actually started playing with the vibration on gold today because of this AMA, but gold is a great example. Gold is one that we just had a really excellent trade on in my room. So I'm just going to use this as my example right here. And I trade gold a lot. So I have weekly pivots that I calculate based on cycles and a lot of different sacred mathematic techniques on the weekly chart. And so I will know that we're bumping into a weekly pivot. So down here, so we actually bought this low right here on the daily chart. And that was because We had the double cluster weekly pivot. So whenever you get multiple cycles lining up at the same time, it tends to be a strong pivot. So we know on the weekly chart, we're looking for a daily pivot within the next 7 to 14 days, because I always give them a 1 week orb either side of the event. But generally speaking, they happen the same week. So then we drill down to the daily chart. And so this is my gold daily chart. There may be a lot going on here, but I'm just going to try to break it down for everybody. So I've got multiple rulers. I push TradingView so hard. I crash it frequently because this one I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rulers and a square of 9. Actually, I have a 6th ruler there that I don't have right now. And my goal with my rulers actually is that I'm actually trying to isolate the most powerful pivots with certain rulers and then minor pivots with other rulers. And so my goal is to find these moments where we have what looks like a clear directional trade. So to me, and in my room, people had been asking me for a little while, are we going to, what's gold doing? What's gold doing? And it was like right here, it was like, okay, we've got the double cluster on the weekly. Oh, slow loading things. And I don't have any more pivot harmonics coming for several weeks. It's going to load here in just a minute. And that we have the Mercury superior conjunction this week. So that tends to be a weekly pivot. So I've added that in here manually. But we didn't have a pivot coming for, 3 weeks on the weekly chart. So then I drill down to the daily. And I mean, this was impressive, really. This is the square of 9 that I use on gold, which I'm happy to share the settings for. This is the anchor date, 10/6/2023, the anchor price, the time. And then Mercury Earth is a ruling cycle for gold and silver. So it's really just Mercury Earth Sun alignments. And so you can use the Mercury Earth square of 9, you can use the Mercury Earth ruler. I use lots of different applications for it, and I haven't really dug into the Mercury Earth vibrations yet, but I'm sure that they're quite good.
Margo,
and yeah,
when you anchor your rulers, do you tend to anchor them to pivot highs or lows or astro events?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
So I believe that this one is a major high or a low. But for example, my Bitcoin rulers, those are all over the place. Some of them are anchored to major highs and lows because some of those actually correlate to major planetary cycles. But sometimes I'll anchor a ruler to like 0 degrees of Aries, like when a planet crosses over 0 degrees Aries. I mean, a great example actually here. This is my Bitcoin chart right now. And this was our pivot. This was our all-time high at the moment was August 13th. It was heliocentric Mercury ingress Aries. That's like, I mean, I think you might have even been the first one that called that out. That is like one of the most reliable Bitcoin pivots, So then I just dropped a heliocentric Mercury square of 9 and anchored it there. And I mean, look at these pivots that we get with this, every single one. So that's been really nice. So we just got one again today. And we don't want to belabor Bitcoin here at the moment because I've jumped from gold over here, but we do have a major cluster of daily pivots coming tomorrow. And because of cycle inversions, again, another thing I'm not going to dive deeply into right now, but Jupiter being at 19 degrees Cancer in the midst of a cycle inversion compared to the 2013 all-time high, I actually think we're going to get a low here. And I think that's going to be a nice low for buying. And that's something we're kind of tracking in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also we're coming up to the second half of the Mercury helio cycle too. And that's tend to get the Bitcoin pumps.
Yeah. And that first 20 to 25% of that next 80-day cycle should be a nice move up. So that's what I'm looking for right now. So the gold trade anyway was great because we saw that both on the daily and on the weekly, we had a period where this marked just our intraday consolidation here, which is what happens with the pivots when we're in a strong trending environment. In a strong trending environment, the pivots become short-term periods of consolidation as opposed to full daily reversals. And the way that all of this is tradable for me is I'm aligning the fractal moment. We've got a weekly pivot, a daily pivot, and then I will oftentimes zoom down to the hourly as well to try to find that entry. and then you take an entry. When you finally take your entry, then your stop loss goes below the low of the low bar. And I mean, you give yourself a little wiggle room, but you get in here and your stop loss goes below here, because if you close a daily close below your support level, then the chances are I was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's just all about controlling my risk. That's actually, as I've become a more and more successful trader over the years, I just won't take, I mean, some people suffer from FOMO. That's not my challenge. My challenge is more being too patient. But I just won't take a trade unless I have a clear stop loss level. And that has really served me well as far as tradability and actionability for setups. So yeah, that's how I look for a price action reversal at the pivot, a close above the high of the low bar for a bullish position, a close below the low of the high bar for a bearish position. And that's kind of my 2 cents on that. I guess the topic of pivots and how to make them tradable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. So 2 very, very interesting approaches that we've shown. I think mine is kind of more sort of planetary line centric. Margo's kind of more ruler centric. There's 27 indicators in time trades. Odds are you can find a way that works for you. Margo, do you want to just maybe do a quick tour of Tesla before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I for sure will. So Tesla is one that is really amazing. Tesla was born, well, its first state of trade, not the company was born, but its first state of trade was born with Jupiter and Uranus in a very tight orb of completion of their cycle. So their synodic cycle was very close. From a heliocentric perspective, it was roughly 7 degrees off. And from a geocentric perspective, it was even a little bit closer. I believe it was it was about 2 degrees off. And so I've actually found, I started way back in the beginning of tracking things on trading, that the geocentric Jupiter-Uranus synodic cycle on Tesla is unbelievable. And I actually put that on there manually, which I think I put in a YouTube video. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find some information on it. But that's not what I want to show right now. What I want to show right now is that you can use that Jupiter-Uranus cycle for multiple different indicators. So this is the, let's start with Uranus. This is Uranus, and this is a weekly chart. So I really, over the years, I used to be a day trader, and I hardly ever day trade anymore. Now I really just focus on longer term swing trades, and even leaning into more, I wouldn't call them fully positioned trades right now. I just call them longer term swing trades. So I'm really doing a lot of looking at weekly charts to try to find major swing highs and swing lows. And so this is Uranus vibration on Tesla. And here's the settings, and it's just Uranus. And this offset technique that Blair has come up with is absolutely incredible. And so what I found, and this is what I'm doing, and I don't know if this is exactly how you were doing it, Blair, but I think it is. I think this is what you showed in your video. Yeah. I'm just putting it exactly at the exact heliocentric degree that it was at, right? On the day of the first state of trade.
Yeah.
And I used 36 as the harmonic because Uranus moves very slow.
Yeah.
And look at these hits. I mean, this is incredible. And again, you got a 2-week orb here. Okay. So you got to use your price action skills. But if this is like, you know if that you're going to get a reversal within 2 weeks of this. So then you drill down to your daily, right? And so then on the daily, it's going to be a little bit slow while it goes down to the daily. So we'll.
All right. So let me ask the group a question. Does everyone understand what this offset does? Okay.
I mean,
I'll just mention that the offset is the starting line. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So normally these things start at 0 degrees, right? Which is the location of the vernal equinox, the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. But by controlling the offset, we're saying, I don't want to start at 0 degrees. I want to start at 357 or whatever the number was that Margo put in. So that gives us a lot more precise control over the Uranus cycle or whatever cycle you want to show.
Yep. It's really profound. I have not been creating as complex of formulas as you have. I've actually really just been going single planets or maybe 2 planets and really honing them in with that offset tool. And that is really, really an incredibly unique tool that you've created. So cheers.
That's so cool.
Cheers
Yeah,
to your innovation again.
I'm kind of like narrowed in, and I love listening to you because you use it in a different way than I do. Because I've been focused on the fixed stars, but you're just saying, hey, look, these 2 big planets are, near conjunct in the natal chart. Let's just create a cycle based on one of them.
Well, and not only are they near conjunct, but they're near conjunct at 0 degrees Aries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, lest we not forget the importance of 0 degrees Aries, it's not just a random point, it's actually due east of the center of Earth, right? So it's a very important point. So I think the combination of that and that conjunction really makes that the ruling cycle over Tesla. And these trades, so this is another one. This is and this is one I've been running for a while. This is Jupiter. And it's just Jupiter. It's a 27th harmonic of Jupiter. And this is weekly pivots that actually fit on the daily within a 1 or 2 day orb, which is pretty astounding, actually. So we've got one coming up. Actually, this is what I'm keeping an eye on right here, September 11th, which I'm hitting September 11th from a lot of different angles. So
yeah, I would say pivot high. That's my intuition around that.
Let's see. Well, yeah, and then we could unpack the rulers too, because then I've got all these different rulers with all these different cycles that, I don't think we need to go too deep into Ruler Town at the moment. I'm trying to find
the mayor of Ruler Town.
The mayor of Ruler Town. Here's one that I'll show. This is using the Jupiter-Uranus cycle. And, this is one of those moments where if you ask me, how did I come to 4.638 degrees of Jupiter-Uranus? I don't have an answer for you now. At the time I created it, I had an answer. It was very intentional. But I've been running this ruler now for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years since pretty much this is one of the first charts I really started dialing in when I got time trades. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's really good. I mean, that's super, super good.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Like I'm getting all sorts of ideas on how to use my own software, just listening to you. Yeah.
Yeah, the tools are absolutely amazing. And, I also think that there's a big component to trading not only the time frame that resonates with your natal chart, which I think is huge, but also trading assets that resonate with your natal chart.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something else that, maybe you're not an astrologer and that feels overwhelming. I mean, I could always help you with that, but you also could just grab these natal dates here. You can take any free software online, grab these natal dates and run an actual chart and overlay it on your chart and see if you get predominantly, I mean, just without even being an astrologer, just do I get predominantly trines, sextiles? Like, does it look harmonious? Do I have things like Jupiter, making a conjunction to Jupiter on the other chart? And just look for things that are positive, because that's huge in my opinion. And so some charts will reveal themselves to you like this, and other charts won't. I mean, there are some charts that I'll crunch and I'll be like, I'm done. I'm not crunching this chart anymore.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, that's what I got.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Last call for questions, comments. No, we're all good. Margo, where can people find more of you?
Oh. Robert, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I do have. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I do have one question. I mean, I'm studying Gene Long's books. By the way, thanks once again, Blair, for sharing that. I do have, I mean, probably I'm gonna have more like a technical question once I finish the book. I'm only halfway through it, but I was wondering, I discovered the Gann square like a year ago, and I was wondering if there is any correlation between the Gann square and the wheel of 24. Like, are they correlated in any way? shape or form. You know what I mean by this Gann
I
square, right?
do.
It's a free tool on
Yeah, yeah,
Trading
yeah.
View.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And what I can say is there's a relationship in the context in which, so like if you're working through Gene Long's books, like if you're working through the Wheel of 24, I don't know where it is, but like I blew up a Wheel of 24 on a big giant piece of paper and like made
Right.
outer wheels and started tracking so that I could really conceptualize what was going on. And the only difference is that you're working with a circle instead of a square, and you're working with angles associated to a 300 the 24 divisions of a 360-degree circle, as opposed to you're working with a square and then the mathematical formulations that come out of a square. But it's a similar translation, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Right. Because it,
Roel,
yeah, go ahead.
I would actually argue that they're kind of fundamentally different based on one key observation is the wheel of 24 is consistent cycles of 24, right? There's
Yeah.
there's 15 rings, there's 24 degrees in each ring. It's always 24 degrees, okay? Whereas in the square of 9, the cycles around the square expand. It expands logarithmically.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's more like a growth spiral, right?
Okay.
And this is why the space between the lines gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You go back and you look at, NVIDIA 3 years ago, right? And the lines are squished. And today the lines are expanded, right? Because it's moved outwards to bigger areas of the square. So I think that's the real difference between the two. So I really think that, mathematically, any kind of correlation between the two would be accidental.
I see. Yeah, that's very interesting because I mean, this book that I'm reading right now, it's like from 1993. So I feel like back in those days they were like drawing like prices, on a piece of paper, whereas right now it's a lot easier with your software. So yeah, kudos to you for, I don't know, like I would like to know more later on this story. I'm really curious on this story behind these indicators that you just developed. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. So this was interesting. I'm looking forward for the next one. I'm even willing to attend like a live seminar if that ever it's a thing or that ever happens. So yeah.
That's something that Margo and I are working on. So
All
yes,
right,
we
sign in
would.
and yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
where do you live, Royal?
Right now I'm in Mexico. I'm from Mexico.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I lived 4 years in Serbia, so I've been in quite a few places as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. All right. Yeah. No, that's something that we see demand for that kind of in-person training. And the short version of the story of where these came from is, I think like everyone on this call, I had a lot of appetite for um, trading in this style, and I bought a lot of books, and I would always hit a wall, right? Because the books would look really interesting, and then it would come time to apply it, and then all of a sudden, this stuff isn't convenient anymore.
Right.
So I'm like, forget this. I have a computer science degree. I have some coding ability. I can, you know, really, I didn't create any of these indicators. All I did was take what people have invented and shared and documented in books over the years and turned it into trading view scripts. So, I
Awesome.
mean, it's been a 5 year labor of love, and I think I'm pretty close to the finish line now. There's always more to do, but I think we're definitely over halfway there. Now it's a matter of kind of mastering the techniques and mastering the psychological part of trading, which I think is where we all want to get to, right? We want to go beyond, okay, this is the standard setup, this is, how I manage risk, and we want to start to master our own mind to make sure that we're disciplined and we're consistent in terms of taking money out of the market, and that's really the end game. That's what I think we all should be focused on. We shouldn't be focused on, how do I calculate a square of 9 and put levels on a chart. that should be routine. So that's really the philosophy behind it all.
Beautiful. All right.
Good stuff. Any last questions before we close the call? So yeah, just a reminder, this is all recorded. If you missed some, you can catch the recording. I'm going to email it out. And oh, Boris asks, Margo, do you have a weekly or monthly newsletter?
I do. Yeah. You can subscribe either through Discord or Patreon. And it's a monthly newsletter. And then it's weekly forecasts that are in video format. And so my video format kind of explains, it doesn't just put out a forecast. I explain why, and I use all of the time trades tools to do that. And then, yeah, but the Discord room is growing. And it's not super active, but the content that's in there is really useful. And that was actually my intention, because I don't have a lot of free time to be chatting constantly. So I actually feel really awesome about the people and the content that's in my room. So then there's also, I put out tons. I'm always putting interesting stuff out in the Discord for people to check out, in addition to the newsletter and the weekly forecast.
Hey, thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, everybody.